Hello and welcome to this Business New Zealand update for Friday, the 21st of May. I'm Grant Walker. Joining me is Business New Zealand CEO Kirk Hope. Well, let's cut to the chase. The wellbeing budget of 2021. What's your first reaction to it?
Well, not much in it for business, really. A pretty balanced budget, to be honest. I mean, when you've got BNZ's chief economist saying, raising his hands and saying the fiscal position is strong, and Moody's and Standard & Poor's basically upgrading New Zealand's debt position, that's not too bad a place to be in a global pandemic. However, as I said, not much for business, not much signalling around what the economic reset or the economic plan really is in the medium term. So that was a bit disappointing. No more thinking about infrastructure. And when you also compare it to or add in the immigration announcement that the government made on Monday about the fact that we won't be returning to previous levels of immigration, quite concerning things. It looks like we simply won't have the people and skills here to do some of the stuff that we want to do in that infrastructure space, and it's desperately needed.
Well, the extra 15.1 billion for infrastructure, but that was well signalled. So really, it's called well-being at the expense from some of business and the economy. Do you agree with those words?
I'm probably not as harsh as that. I think it's a pretty middle-of-the-road budget. Actually, what I'd observe is Bill English could have produced this budget. If you recall, I think under National, they increased benefit rates for the first time in something like 40 years in real terms. This is a bit like a Bill English budget, but without the business part attached to it. I think so. There's some big stuff in there. I mean, I don't want to underplay the commitment that they've made from a capital expenditure perspective. They've agreed to increase capital expenditure, mostly on social infrastructure, by 50%. Now, businesses benefit from that because they're doing all the stuff. They're refurbing the school buildings, the hospitals, and so on and so forth. And 50% is a big number, but nothing directly.
All right, the proposed unemployment insurance scheme. Can you briefly tell us what actually is it?
Well, look, one of the things that we have been thinking about is where there are sort of gaps in the New Zealand framework. So the Productivity Commission did some great work looking at how employment insurance schemes work around the world, and in particular, one of the schemes, which is the Danish scheme, it's called Flex Security. They've got pretty flexible labour markets, but they also have this insurance scheme, which looks a little bit like our ACC scheme, which employers, employees, and the government pay into. And it essentially provides you with a percentage of your income if you're out of work, but only for a specific period of time. And there are conditions attached to it. For example, you have to be looking for work, and you have to be looking for training or be in training to expand your skill set so that you're available and you can get work.
So, and just repeating again, everyone has to pay it. It's not just one area. It's not just business. It's not just government. It's not just employees.
No, and I guess the thinking there is, you keep the scope of the scheme quite narrow, and the levy becomes very low. If you expand the scope of the scheme, it becomes more and more expensive, and therefore unaffordable, and therefore unsupportable.
All right, I want to turn to COVID now. Just released Ministry of Health research from April. 77% of us aged 60 and over are likely to either get the vaccine or have already been vaccinated, compared to 69 in March. Well, it'd put a smile on our face, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think what it shows you is the anti-vaxxers are really losing the disinformation war or the information war. And that's a good thing. I mean, the more people that get vaccinated and the quicker that they get vaccinated, the more we are able to re-engage with the world, and the more quickly we are able to re-engage with the world. So that's an important survey, and it will be great to see at least 77% of New Zealanders get the vaccine.
All right, so we want people to re-engage with us, and of course they are. They're coming here for the ski season, and we've already had a bit of snow down south. With that Trans-Tasman bubble, how is the tourism sector going? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, it's slow to pick up. I think they would acknowledge that. However, there's a lot of forward bookings. We have just had an event here at the Hilton Hotel, and they've said that their forward bookings are looking pretty positive. Not obviously what they were pre-COVID, but however, compared to where they have been, it's a really positive sign. So we're hearing that from around the country, where tourism hotspots have been particularly hard hit, that it's starting to pick up. That's going to be important for the next stage of the recovery for the tourism sector in New Zealand.
Well, also too that you're hearing, well, I'm certainly talking to people who are considering booking next year some overseas trips. So the minute we start talking about going overseas, people are certainly feeling better.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's, and again, that's a positive thing, although we'd of course like everyone to spend their money in New Zealand.
All right, let's end with those. Well, before we get to there, I want to talk about briefly fair pay agreements, but I want to talk about that immigration reset first of all. Now, is it an immigration reset, or is it, as the Prime Minister said, a way to ensure we don't have sort of a low, if you like, income economy?
Well, actually, I think it's probably worse than that. If you look at, as I said previously, the Australian budget, $100 billion, it's going to be a magnet for New Zealand workers to go over to Australia. We won't necessarily have the skills coming out of our training system to be able to fill those gaps, and we'll have to rely on not low skilled or low paid migrant labour. We'll have to rely on medium and high skilled, and medium and high paid labour, and we won't be able to get access to it because this will be going on at the time when the rest of the world will be reopening, and we'll be competing globally for those people. I think that the government probably needs to wake up to that fact, because it could have a significant impact on New Zealand's growth in the future. So they have to get their head around that in a much better way than they have.
All right, let's get to it. Fair pay agreements, and I'm sure you've got a fair bit to say to the government about this.
Well, I mean, I think I could sum up our position in about 9 words, Grant. Don't like them, don't want them, and don't need them.
Okay, see you next time.